Welcome to Bigfoot Society. We've got another episode of comments and call-ins for you this week where I share my favorite comments off of YouTube throughout the week. A lot of encounters come in that way. And also my favorite calls that I got last Saturday night from Bigfoot Encounters Live. Make sure you don't miss that when it happens this weekend. If anything that you hear tonight reminds you of an encounter that you've heard of or you experienced, please contact me as soon as possible, bigfootsociety@gmail.com. I'm always looking to interview people for the podcast about what they've experienced, so I would love to hear from you. If you wish that there were more Bigfoot Society episodes to listen to, there are. If you become a supporting member over at patreon.com/the Bigfoot Society, you can hear an extra episode just for supporting members every week. And some episodes even have extra parts at the end that you'll really enjoy just for supporting members. Well, we've got a lot to get into for this episode, so without further ado, let's get on with the show. All right, welcome back to another episode of Comments and Call-ins. We got some really interesting ones that came in on the YouTube channel over the last week, so let's get into it. On the Pennsylvania police officer episode number 425, David writes, "White Bigfoot equals Yeti? No." So I'm going to say no on this because Yeti is specifically a creature that lives not in the continental U.S. at all. But there are different regional variants or perhaps Bigfoot that just happen to have white hair, like in Alabama, the Alabama white thing. This episode we talked about Northeast Pennsylvania. There's plenty of ones that are seen in the U.S. that have white hair. I do appreciate you caring enough to put your comment in, though. That is awesome. But in this particular situation, I am going to disagree that this white Bigfoot talked about in this episode, not a Yeti. Moving on, user Fourth Doctor says, what would be cheaper than anti-Bigfoot trail cams could be to get a bunch of IR LEDs and hook them up to small, cheap solar panels. All of these can be found on Temu and inexpensive as well. That's a really cool idea. It could be something there, something to look into. Let me know if anyone ends up doing that and if that works on your property. Let me know in the comments. User Eric says on the Washington expedition video, which a lot of people enjoyed getting that viewpoint of Jonathan's first BFRO expedition. It's even called out by Matt Moneymaker in his BFRO Facebook group. Thank you for that, Matt. Eric says, we had an attendee play a didgeridoo on a Southern New York BFRO expedition. Spooky. Hey, well, at the end of the day, just play interesting sounds to try to get them in. I've heard people, I want to say it was Tate, who has played video games, used, I want to say, disco balls. When we were on one of our Iowa expeditions, we kind of had our own personal concert. We had an individual there from a band who played a song, all sorts of stuff to try to bring them in. So just do normal human things that would make them curious is what it comes down to. On the Bob Barheit Iowa episode, number 433, KMT says, awesome to hear about all this. I am up in La Crosse, that's Wisconsin. I did live across the river in Minnesota and had a very strange audio encounter and had no idea they were living around here. KMT, I would love to hear that audio encounter that you had. If you want to reach out to me, bigfootsociety@gmail.com. Half of the reason that I do this comments and call-ins is there's a lot of things that are put out in the comments encounter-wise, and I'd love to talk to the people that leave those comments. So this is my way of getting in touch with them. Episode 421, our grizzly bear necks get snapped in Montana. Catherine says, when I was young, I did 4.5 years of search and rescue as an explorer scout with the county. We did evidence searches and looked for bodies from the Green River killer. It would be so dangerous if we found a Sasquatch. No weapons to protect ourselves, as if that would help. I know the areas where they have been, but no desire to even see one from a distance. They're so big and fast. Be careful, super careful if you go looking. They will find you before you find them. Whole camps of armed men have lost their lives doing this. Tree knocks will bring them to you. Then what? Be careful. So, Catherine, my question for you is, you said whole camps of armed men have lost their lives doing this. Are you talking about just doing basic search and rescue missions, or is this something connected to a Bigfoot or Sasquatch? You can feel free to send me an email if you need to, as this is probably info you may not want to be discussing out in the open. On the Rainier, Oregon, episode number 293, user Jim, writes an interesting comment. I almost had a heart attack when one night I saw something unusual outside my kitchen window. So I got close to my window and looked out at it inquisitively when I see it's a couple of eyes looking in my kitchen window at me. And it was pitch black outside. I was home alone and I just froze at first. Then survival mode kicked in and I grabbed my flashlight and I go to the window. I shine it out as my dog is standing on her back legs. She always does this during the daytime when she wants inside. And yeah, I thought it was Bigfoot at first. There's a lot of really interesting things you can take from that comment. The first is, a lot of us that are watching these videos probably are always thinking about Bigfoot, right? So what I like that Jim did is, even though he thought he didn't know what it was, he did a little bit of investigation, got his flashlight, looked outside. It's just his dog. So the lesson is, do your due diligence if you're able to, but don't put yourself in a situation where you might get into physical harm either. Don't want that. We'll keep going. The West Lynn episode, Oregon, number 306. Mr. Matthew has some really interesting ideas. With just a few night missions, Sasquatch will quickly realize they have between 2 a.m. until 5 to 6 a.m. to roam around with very little chance of being seen. They can walk 8 to 10 miles an hour at a leisurely pace, 20 to 40 miles an hour if they run. So yeah, if they wanted to get brave and encroach suburbs, no problem. When you look at the satellite map, it doesn't look like there's enough non-settled suburbs even to be suitable habitat. I'm amazed that they're living so close, or even the suburbs. Good questions. Are Sasquatch rising in populations and encroaching our settled areas, or are we settling new areas and encroaching on what has been their habitat? This is the part I like of his comments. It's a really good question for us to ask, and I'm going to go with, we're settling new areas and encroaching on what has been their habitat. A great example of this is a recent expedition that went on down in Florida with a bunch of guys. Alex Petikoff was down there. You had Brian Garvey from Brian and Chewy Go Hiking channel. And the area that they're in is just an area that's surrounded by houses, but yet there is actual Sasquatch population in there because we keep building into these areas. So I'm going to go with your second idea there, Mr. Matthew. Thank you for commenting. We got a comment on I Grew Up with Bigfoot, which is a members only episode, so it's the public version of it. It's 437. Rodex says, I enjoy all your shows and I'm already subscribed. So what's the difference between this as a member? Thanks. That's a great question. Let me explain how it works a little bit. So on YouTube, you can become a YouTube channel member, and when there's a members only episode every Wednesday, I put a version of it up for the public audience. So that means the main channel can hear it and watch it, right? If you're a YouTube channel member in the Bigfoot Posse tier, you can see these extra videos. And if you go over to the membership tab these member videos are going to show up over there. So you have to click join on the channel. And it's a way for you to help out the podcast, help us get to full time. So the difference between this video, or the difference between being a member and a subscriber, is a subscriber is something free. You get the ability to watch the free videos on the channel. Still helps the channel grow. As a member, you're actually putting in a monetary amount per month and you're getting extra content. I'm also going to talk about the Patreon for a little bit. So there's also a Patreon I have at Bigfoot Society, which is a great community there. The YouTube channel membership is because a lot of people didn't want to make the trip over from YouTube to Patreon, but they just wanted to be able to support through YouTube. So if you want to get a little deeper, and we have a lot of really fun things that happen on the Bigfoot Society Patreon, you can go over to patreon.com/the Bigfoot Society. We have a Discord. We have a Facebook group. We have the same episodes, members only episodes that you get over on YouTube. We have a watch through party. So we're watching through different Bigfoot videos every month. And we have a end of the month Google Hangout where we all hang out in an online call, chat with each other, get to know each other better. It's a good time. That's going to actually happen on Sunday night, the 26th. So if you want to take part in that, make sure that you join the Bigfoot Society Patreon right away. Anyways, that's just a little teaser as to what we've got going on there to kind of help just describe for you a little bit better. Let's keep going. Episode 425, Police Officer, Pennsylvania. Steeler says, I have a camp in Marionville, Pennsylvania, and as a hobby, I go out doing my research in the forest around camp in the area north of 66 and south of 666. It's where I had 2 sightings in the last year. But that whole area is very busy. Just be safe and be prepared. Steeler, if you want to share what you've experienced, please reach out through email. Martin Grove's episode, which is actually the one from Monster Fest last year in Canton, Ohio. I was able to talk to Martin Groves about his dogman encounter. User 1LL says, the metal crash was a portal opening and closing. It's very interesting. Let me know in the comments if you agree with that. Also, I want to hear if you've been out in the woods and you've heard any weird sounds that should not be happening there. They don't make sense to hear. Let me know what sounds you've heard when you've been out in the woods. Episode 420, re-release of Oak Ridge, Oregon. Rhonda says, that cobbler story was incredible. Actually, all of it was. It'd be so cool just to sit down around a campfire and listen to Ronnie's stories. He just has one of those voices you could listen to all day. Thank you for sharing, Ronnie. Absolutely. There's a way that you can listen to Ronnie, probably, or at least probably talk to him in person. I'm not going to make any, promises, but I'm going to guess if you go to Sasquatch Summerfest in Oak Ridge, Oregon this July, you probably would be able to talk to Ronnie. I think he's going to be there. No promises, but his daughter's putting on the festival, so I'm going to guess he's going to make an appearance and be around. Again, you can go to SasquatchSummerfest.com. If you want to get 50% off your tickets, Priscilla did put in a coupon code for me to tell people about. The coupon code is now Bigfoot Society, 2 words, all capitals. Let's continue. Last year, I did a top 10 Bigfoot episodes of 2023. A lot of people like that. I'm going to be doing it again this year. Tapin2 said, more from country, please. We would love to hear details from him. Like the roar made him almost feel nauseous. More detail, how it looks. They're also good, though. Fantastic show. Thank you. The ball's in Country's court. I have contacted Country and invited him to come back on the show. So pretty much we're just waiting for the right time for him to come back on. Again, Country, if you're listening, you still have an open invitation. Just let me know, friend. On We Weren't Alone in Grandpa's Cabin, 435. That's the Rocky Mountain House, Alberta archive. Cold says, get ad block ultimate. I never see ads. True, you wouldn't, but then you also don't support the channel that you're watching. So here's the thing, guys. If you want to see Bigfoot Society continue to grow, watch the ads. I know it's terrible, but it's one of the only ways that you can help the channel to grow. If you really don't want to do it and you have ad block, that's fine. That's on you. I do know that YouTube can check that behavior, so just be careful. But at least tell your friends about the channel and share about your favorite episode with your friends. Episode 421, back to the grizzly bears in Montana. Carlos says, I really think they should avoid each other. I seriously doubt Bigfoot would win a fight with an adult grizzly bear. All right, let's sound off in the comments. Who's going to win, a Bigfoot or an adult grizzly bear, and why? Let's see what we get from this. Episode 343, Hood River, Oregon. I believe this is my friend Alex, his episode. Well, user Ilu, had a really interesting comment here. This area is where I had my first Bigfoot experience almost a year ago. Just southwest of Odell and Parkdale, up on some Forest Service roads, north side of Hood. I was having a fire with a friend. It's twilight, and we start hearing this deep, loud oof about every minute or two. After a little while, we start hearing another one from the opposite side of us making the same noise. Thought it could possibly be bear calling to each other. This goes on for a while. Then we hear some other weird noises, one like a scream and a monkey sound. And then from another direction behind us, a single loud owl hoot. We were surrounded. I was terrified. We left shortly after. Also, I should mention at the same time, we saw the Mount Adams lights on Mount Adams. The friend I was with has actually seen Bigfoot and experienced the roar scream. This experience got me into researching Bigfoot and listening to encounters, and here I am almost a year later. LOL. Hiking should be fun this summer. What a very interesting encounter. A few things to take from this. It sounds like you really had something going on around your area. There's a really cool app that you can have on your phone called the Merlin Bird app. And I learned this from Tactical Bigfoot Research, Mike Ann. And if you have that app on you, if you can open it quick enough, it will actively listen to what sounds are going on around you. And it will tell you if it's a bird or not, which is really cool. It sounds like you really had some interesting things though going on around you. And please keep me in the loop as if you have anything else happen when you're hiking this summer. It's very interesting. People love that grizzly bear episode 421. In fact, Duke from, I believe his name is Duke from World Bigfoot Central, stopped by. He comments, I do most of my research in Montana, and I find it interesting that people think Bigfoot are in the Pac West, but not as far east as Montana. 52 mountain ranges and 22 million acres of forest, but no Bigfoot. LMAO. Every mountain range I have been in here has structures and often tracks showing the signs that biggies are all around. The only people I run into around here who don't think Bigfoot is probably real are people who moved here from elsewhere. Interesting thought. And World Bigfoot, I'm on the same page as you. I've heard enough from Montana to know that you guys definitely have some wild stuff going on. It's out of control. Back to the Washington Expedition, episode 436. Local Squatch just says, I find some good evidence. If you want to, reach out. I would love to hear about what you're finding there. BigfootSociety@gmail.com. It's an interesting comment on episode 366. This is when I talked to Priscilla and Ronnie. Mountain Man's is a user. I'm going to try to read this best I can. I'm going to edit it a little bit because some of it I don't agree with. I just don't want to put that out there. So you're going to have a bunch of people and be broadcasting sounds known to trigger aggressive response and just hope all goes well. Say you get lucky and all goes well there. We have seen where actions in one place evoke reactions miles away. I'm nearly 400 miles away. What are the odds I see fallout from this event? This is reckless and irresponsible and will not only hurt the cause you're trying to help, but destroy the trust we're trying to build with this Sasquatch. Okay. So what is this individual talking about? This individual is talking about how one of the things that's going to happen at Sasquatch Summerfest is that there is going to be a hiking area in the woods across the river from where the festival is going to be held, where they're going to be playing the Sierra Sounds, and you can go hiking in the woods on this trail. I think it's a mountain biking trail. So I get what you're saying. I don't think it's going to be an issue. I get what you're saying, though. Honestly, I get what you're saying. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. I have been with a group where we played the Sierra Sounds in Iowa. There was not an aggressive response. There was a response. Later that night, 3 to 3:30 a.m., I heard whoops in the woods outside my tent. So yeah, there was a response. Definitely, we don't know what those sounds are saying. So it's always a toss-up when we play those sounds. And who knows how long they travel, and who knows what they start to say when you play them for hours and hours. I mean, this could be the longest amount of time that those have ever been played. Who knows? In fact, you could say this is kind of an experiment and we'll see what happens. So I would recommend not to miss out on Sasquatch Summerfest. We'll see what happens. I'll let you know because I'll be there. On one of the call-in shows, user Free Carry says, I have many encounters with proof. Can't wait to tell them to your listeners. If you're an individual that hasn't set up a time, reach out to me through email, bigfootsociety@gmail.com. I would love to hear about what encounters you've had, or maybe you already have an interview set up for the future and that's what you're referring to. Back to the Washington episode 436. Modoc says, on the search in McDermott, Oregon. Interesting. Modoc, I'd love to hear more about that. Reach out, please. The judge says, I can think of nothing more irritating than unexpected bagpipes on a camping excursion I'm paying for. Frankly, I'm surprised someone didn't shove those things back into his luggage. User Happy replies, on the contrary, everyone loved it. It drew in a Sasquatch that night, so it worked. Yeah, here's the thing. So I'm on board with Happy on this. If I'm paying to go on an expedition, I want to have interaction with a Bigfoot. If it takes someone playing bagpipes or didgeridoo or Guitar Hero or fill in the blank, anything, I don't care. If it brings in the interactions, go for it. So I'm not really going there to just kind of chill out and have a good time. I'm actually trying to go there and get some interactions in. So I'm going to side with Happy on this, but the judge, I'm thankful that you cared enough to leave a comment, even though we respectfully disagree with each other. Thank you. What we saw at Spirit Lake horrified us. That's episode 434. That is actually the last comments in Collins. User Ben says, does anyone else wonder why we don't hear about Sasquatch crossing the Columbia River? I'm not anti-Bigfoot. In fact, I want it to be true. However, the question does come to mind often. Kevin responds with an interesting idea. With their lung capacity, they can probably go underwater all the way across that river. Absolutely, Kevin. I'm going to totally agree with you on this one. But listeners out there, if you've seen or heard of a sighting where Sasquatch is crossing the Columbia River, I would love to hear about that. Please reach out or just put it in the comments for this. Episode 430, Revenge of the Donkey Squatch. E-Rock says, just lost me putting content behind a paywall. Thanks, but no thanks. Way too much of this content on YouTube to have to pay for it. I get one of these comments about once a week whenever I put an episode out that's behind a paywall. Again, the reason I do this is the goal, guys, is to be able to go full time so that I can go out there, start to make trips, start to interview people face to face. There's a lot of people that won't do these interviews even on the phone. They are like, you've got to come to my place and talk to me face to face. It's because a lot of it is trust. These older people will not trust unless they see me face to face, which I totally understand. Long story short, if you want to help Bigfoot Society get to the thing we've been saying is get us to the moon, which is to go full time. A way to do that and to get extra content is to become a YouTube channel member or a Patreon member. And a huge thank you to those who have gotten on board with that. An older episode, Terrified at This Ohio Park. I think this is when I talked to John Hickenbottom one of the times. Miss Joni says, sycamore is the only wood I found that would make a knock dense enough to sound similar, but I still believe they make the sound with their mouth. Always an interesting conversation. Let me know in the comments if you think that sycamore is the only type of wood that would make a knock dense enough, or if you are on the side where you think it's the Bigfoot hitting their hands together in front of their mouth to make a knock sound, which I believe I'm on that side too, because what are the chances that every single time a Bigfoot has a large stick and a tree right in front of them to hit a response within seconds? It logically doesn't make sense. I think a lot of that is them hitting their hands together in front of their mouth. And I've heard researchers that can do it. I've seen them do it. Episode 243, which is the original Elijah Henderson episode. User rates, very interesting. I wish someone would interview an individual from the Flintville or someone who did interview with the folks. The Indian Mound Bigfoot and Flintville monster acted very similar. User, I think I know what you're talking about. And if someone else does and they know someone associated with the Flintville monster, have them reach out, bigfootsociety@gmail.com. I'd love to talk to them about what they experienced. Episode 293, which is the Rainier, Oregon episode. Lisa writes, as a native in Oregon, they are there especially. Mount Hood, Blue Mountains, the coastline, still but sparse. Very interesting, Lisa. If you have more detailed information about what you've seen that you would like to share, you can definitely reach out. On the Iowa episode 433, Regen says, grew up in Pocahontas County. Several reports there in later 70s, early 80s. Absolutely. I think I know a few of those from my newspaper research and from reading David Weatherly's book, Monsters of the Hawkeye State. But Regen, if you feel free to reach out, you might know some reports that haven't been written down, and I would love to hear about those. In the Berkshire, Mass, Everyone Was Screaming episode number 423, user feed says, stupid question. No questions are stupid, by the way. Does the owner of this channel believe that Bigfoot and other cryptid entities are real? I think that we should know. The answer is yes. Absolutely. I think that Bigfoot and cryptids are real to the point that I've been looking for them in at least one area around Iowa and soon to come more areas. So there's the answer to your question. Back to the Pennsylvania police officer, episode 425. Rust says, I'm 25 minutes from the Poconos. I live in Scranton part-time, the Electric City. That's for me. But am from Wayne County. I've had an encounter in Susquehanna County twice. They are out there. Rust, please reach out to me. I'd love to hear about the encounters that you've had. One of my favorite episodes is when I got to talk to a good friend about his time in Oklahoma, Surrounded by Whoops, episode 2263. It's a great one. User Mecca says, I'm close to this man's age and from, I'm going to say this wrong, and I apologize, guys. Let me know in the comments how I'm supposed to say it. Sequoia County, Oklahoma, right next to LaFleur County. I'm familiar with where he was in the bleeped areas. Living in Sequoia County, I've had my own experiences with sounds and rocks being thrown, plus eerie feelings of something around me. I'll say this, I'm not far from a very large refuge. It's a beautiful area to tour during the day, but not recommended to ever go out into at night. As a young kid, around 13 or 14 years old, I've camped out in hollows with school friends or an uncle. Living in Sequoia County, I've had my own experiences with sounds and rocks being thrown, plus eerie feelings of something around me. I also have a cousin that heard a frustrated growl one night right next to my bedroom window. This area where else I live was also where cattle mutilations occurred in the mid-70s. Not to tie it in with Bigfoot, but we've had some UFO activity, and to my knowledge, only me and my cousin will make an effort to talk about it. If you would like to talk about what you've experienced over the years down there in Oklahoma, you are always free to reach out. I love talking to people from Oklahoma, and that goes to anyone listening. So Mecca, please reach out to me through email. Back to Comments and Collins, episode 434. Erebus says, there seems to be a divide between Sasquatch being flesh and blood or an orb-throwing, portal-dwelling, invisible thing. There's too many people on each side of the argument. The best answer I've heard from an elder was that there are flesh and blood ones. Then there are mimics that can turn into any animal, but choose a Squatch. Wow, that's, excuse me, that is a really interesting idea. I'm going to have to think about that for a while. Is there something that is trying to mimic an actual Sasquatch? I don't know. I'm not sure what I feel about that, but I like thinking about it for a bit. Thank you for bringing that up. Catherine also writes the same episode. Good afternoon from Springfield, Oregon. There's definitely something in the woods around here. We have had small rocks thrown at us from the wood line, trees coming down, sounds that can't be explained. Be careful when you're exploring the forest. Catherine, please reach out via email. I'd love to talk to you more about that. Kristen writes on the same episode, wood knocking? I'm not sure what I think. We can only go by sightings, but I do know that they seem famous for destroying the woods like bulldozers. So would it really be off to say that breaking the nearest tree branch off in a moment's notice be unrealistic? No, I don't think they carry branches around either. But to reach up and break one off is probably no different than us grabbing our phones in an emergency. Interesting way of looking at it. I totally get what you're saying. In the Iowa episode 433, Barbara says, there's some activity by Lake Red Rock in Marion County. There's a shelter that was there when my sister and her husband went there. It's located at Whitebreast. It's a nature area, I believe. Barbara, I agree with you. I've had multiple reports from people that have seen things in the Lake Red Rock area. So yeah, totally on board with you. Thank you for commenting. If you ever want to share more, you can email me directly. Episode 426, Puget Sound episode. Craig writes, a friend took me to an old logging landing. There were 3 huts, larger, smaller, and smaller. The branches were torn off the trees and interwoven. We felt like we were being watched. This is at Greenwater, Washington State, on the West Fork of the White River. Greenwater has a long history of Bigfoot. I fished and hunted in the area for 50 years. There are 3 areas I always get a spooky feeling. One of them I will not go into. Craig, please reach out. I'd love to talk to you about this area. I don't think I've talked to anyone about this area yet. Sounds very interesting. Back on 434 comments and Collins, Mark writes, has anyone found footprints and tracked them to their source? I myself have seen a Bigfoot in person, but was driving my truck around and almost hit it. Just curious. Mark, reach out. I'd love to talk to you about when you saw a Bigfoot when you were driving a truck. That'd be really interesting to hear about. And if anyone's ever tracked a Bigfoot to the Bigfoot by footprints, man, reach out. Love to talk to you too. User Hopper says, I live in Oregon. I know where Spirit Lake is. I haven't spent much time up there, though. I've heard there are Bigfoot up there. I'm familiar with Timothy Lake up on Mount Hood. I've had several encounters up there while bow hunting. Hopper, I would love to talk to you. You sound like you probably are a wealth of knowledge. Please reach out through email. In another episode of Bigfoot Encounters Live, Russ writes, in Alabama, I've heard of sightings in Bankhead and Sipsey forests, some up towards the foothills of the Appalachians near Fort Payne. Absolutely right, Russ. Bankhead is a hot spot. So is Talladega National Forest. A lot of action down there. And don't forget Jefferson and Etowah counties, and even St. Clair in between them. You might have the Alabama white thing show up over there. Milo writes a few comments that are interesting to go over on 434 comments and Collins. There are eyewitnesses that have seen eyewitnesses that have seen Sasquatch slap a tree with the edge of their hand to produce the wood knock sound so well. But that was from a full-grown 10-footer. A kid watched that male grab a full-grown buck and snap its neck right in front of him. The Squatch grabbed the buck, though, threw it over his shoulder, then whacked a tree with the ridge of his hand, making the wood knock sound. That's one tough hand. But I'm sure they make these wood knocks in all sorts of different ways. Now, that's an interesting idea, Milo. Who's to say it only has to be one way? Why can't it be several different ways? He also writes, if you go camping in Washington for more than 3 nights, you don't have to look for them. They will come to you. They always seem to come into camp to check us out around night 3. Milo, I'm on board with this. Reach out, please. I would love to hear specifics about what's occurred to you when you're out camping in Washington and what happens on night 3. Jag says, I believe the orbs are connected sometimes. There's too many encounters with the two together in close proximity. Interesting. If you've heard specific encounters that might not be written about anywhere, I'd love to hear about them. You can reach out, Jag. People in the comments, if you've heard of an encounter where the orbs and the Bigfoot are connected, please put it in the comments. I'd love to hear about it. Michael writes, I gave up on SC a while ago. Prefer this in Sasquatch theory these days. Yeah, I get it. Everyone has their own things they like to listen to. So I'm going to take a few minutes to talk about this because it's really interesting. At the end of the day, the way I look at it is all the Bigfoot content creators are kind of working towards the same thing, or they should be, which is to get Bigfoot disclosure, to get the truth about Bigfoot out there, to get it in the public eye so that more people will share. And then it just becomes a snowball going down a hill, right? So whether you like Sasquatch Chronicles, Sasquatch Theory, Sasquatch Odyssey, and full disclosure, when I'm working, I listen to all those shows and I love them. I love listening to Sasquatch Chronicles, Sasquatch Theory, Sasquatch Odyssey, that Bigfoot show. I listen to a lot of them. I used to not, but now I've got the time. You know, I'm doing a lot of walking around the house, getting healthy. So I've got the time to listen. So, you know, at the end of the day, it's what you prefer. And if you guys are choosing to listen to Bigfoot Society, because I know time is limited, I appreciate that. And I know you could listen to hundreds of shows out there. And I appreciate every one of you who take the time to listen to this show. Don't think I ever take that for granted. Episode 420. Oak Ridge, Oregon. Replay. User Fungus says, on February 1st, 2017 at 17:30, which is 5:30 for those people not familiar with military time, around dusk, I was delivering propane to the Hazeldale rural fire station on Dead Mountain Road, a few miles north of Oak Ridge. As I looked for the lid of an underground propane tank under the snow, I had an intense feeling that I was being watched from the tree line 100, I think it's yards, south of the fire station. It was so unnerving that I almost left. I filled the tank, never taking my eyes off the tree line. As I departed, I stood on the floorboard of the truck and took several photographs of the tree line. In one of the photos, there's an outline of a humanoid figure with a hairy face standing behind a tree just inside the shadows. All right. So I'm going out to Oak Ridge this July. It's going to be a great time. So I've done a lot of studying of the map. From what I can tell, Hazeldale is definitely, it's north of Oak Ridge. It's definitely more out there. Fungus, please reach out to me. If you would want to share this photo, I would love to look at it. Bigfoot Society, gmail.com. Or if it's a thing where you can't put it on the internet, maybe I'll meet you at the festival and I'd love to see it then. Yeah. I'm just going to throw it out there. I'd love to look at it and talk to you. Hope to see you there. Speaking of the festival, 434 Comments and Collins, Oregon Wildman writes, maybe I'll see you at the Oak Ridge Festival. Right up the road from there, I had a 30-footer stare down with one. Oh, yeah, no, I read that wrong. I'm sorry. My mistake. Right up the road from there, I had a 30-foot stare down. Hold on, I got to look this up. All right, I'm back. So let's start this comment over. Maybe I'll see you at the Oak Ridge Festival. Right up the road from there, I had a 30-foot stare down with one for 3 to 5 minutes. Oregon Wildman, we got to talk. Reach out, please. BigfootSociety@gmail.com, or maybe I'll talk to you at the festival. But man, if you had a 30-foot away stare down with one for 3 to 5 minutes, you should know some details. And I would love to talk to you about what you saw. On another call-in show, a user says, my first time, 73-year-old backpacker climber, Salt Lake City, Utah. If you're saying that you saw one, and that was your first time, your encounter, I'd love to talk to you about it. Please reach out. On 434 Comments and Collins, Christina says, I'm about to relocate from Georgia to Western North Carolina from an upscale subdivision to a cabin in the woods. Hubby and I are jumping off the debt hamster wheel and moving into our weekend cabin that has long been paid for. Good for you guys. I'm fairly certain that Sasquatch reside there because of the tree structures I see near the house. Been going up there for 15 years with no notable incidents or encounters, but I wonder how things will go when we are full-time residents. I'm hoping to be peaceful neighbors. Yeah, Christina, I would say when you are there, you're probably going to have stuff happen about after like 3 to 4 days of living there. And please reach out to me. I'd love to talk to you about what happens. Maybe even try to help you through it, talk to you through it, all that good stuff. BigfootSociety@gmail.com. Kenny writes on the same one, Blue Ridge Parkway in Asheville, North Carolina. I had a wild experience. Camping with 2 friends, and it's midnight or so. We begin to hear this laughter sound. It's loud and kind of echoing through the woods. Now, a long time ago in like 08 or 09, I've seen a video on YouTube that had the same sound, same hyena sounding laughter. Then the tree knocks, then a deep guttural growl that we all felt as well as heard. I unzipped the tent and looked behind the tent and seeing 3 sets of glowing yellow eyes, 2 tall sets and 1 shorter set. I think it was the little fella that was messing with us. And I believe he says this happened when he was a kid in 79 to 80. Oh, no. Robin. So there's two different encounters in the same comment thread. That's wild. Kenny and Robin, I would like to talk to you both about your encounters. If you want to reach out to me through email, go right ahead. From the episode, Terror Gripped Me When I Saw It, William Morris, Jessica writes the following. I was driving down the road right in the middle of Shawnee National Forest, and all of a sudden I had this eerie feeling that I was being watched. Then a rock hits my car windshield, and I noticed nobody was around because normally the big rigs were coming and going from the coal mine. But I knew that it was a Bigfoot. I only knew because of my father's encounters years back near the same area. He was face to face with one. I just knew because the locals all put these signs up of Bigfoot. Just wooden cutouts of a black figure with red eyes. LOL, I guess they're used to them being around. Me, not so much. I was shook. Jessica, reach out. I'd love to talk to you about what your family has encountered over the years. If anyone else has encountered any sightings in the Shawnee National Forest, please reach out as well. On 426, the Puget Sound episode, Robert writes, I've been hiking the mountains for 40 years, and I keep something that will stop anything on this planet from moving, but I've ran into some things from another dimension where my firearm would do me no good. There's something out there. You can call it Bigfoot. Whatever it is that I've seen was big and powerful. And the last thing on my mind was taking a picture, but nothing is powerful enough to break a grizzly's neck. But an elephant or gorilla, and they are not in American mountains. I've been in Washington State for 30 years, and there are some strange things in the mountains. Robert, if you are up to it, I would love to talk to you about what you experienced up in the mountains that have made you ask these questions. What is it that you saw? Please reach out at bigfootsociety@gmail.com. I'd love to talk to you. On the Iowa episode, Iowa Ferret writes, I think they're in Steamboat Rock area as well. Sounds familiar, Iowa Ferret. I would love to hear more about what you have heard about that area. I think it was the Rick Rasmer episode. This is way back. Jeremy writes, Bigfoot Acres, LOL. Yes, there is. Been there, seen it. If you've been to Bigfoot Acres, please reach out. I would love to talk to you about what you experienced there. In the Iowa episode, Lynn says, I had a face-to-face Bigfoot encounter back in 1975 in Vandalia, Illinois. Please reach out, Lynn. Love to talk to you about that. Here's an interesting comment about Des Moines from the Iowa episode. Admira says, I lived in Des Moines 30 years ago, 56 in Ingersoll. Maybe about 5 or 6 years ago, I heard another Bigfoot researcher say his group investigated a park lake area just outside Des Moines along a river. I figured it was Saylorville or the area surrounding the Raccoon River. I don't know if the Des Moines area is more developed now. It is more developed now. In the 90s, it was pretty forested outside the city limits. See, that's interesting. I'm kind of curious what area you're talking about. If you have more info or you think you know who you're talking to, you could definitely reach out. I'd love to talk to that Bigfoot researcher. If people in the comments have any ideas about what area is being talked about, definitely reach out. In a previous Comments and Call-ins, there is a comment that came in that made me really look into, or made me have better perspective, I'll say. And Chris, I appreciate this comment. I'm going to read it. It isn't necessarily your voice that sends people to sleep. Think of your podcast as bedtime stories that as an adult you can become invested in. I'm sure even skeptical listeners can suspend their disbelief on Sasquatch and maybe even be open to the possibility altogether. Skeptic doesn't mean non-believer after all. Remember when you were a kid and your loved ones read you fairy tale stories and your childlike imagination could still imagine the possibility of it coming true? Well, your podcast invokes those feelings in us later in life. It's great. Naturally, as adults, we cannot believe in fairy tales, but we're open or full of but we are open and in full belief of Sasquatch, which still is knee-deep in mystery, but has the other foot planted firmly in reality. These podcasts really helped me sleep at night, and by no means am I not enthralled and entertained by it at the same time. Chris, thank you. I now, if my podcast helps people get to sleep for that reason, then I wear it as a badge of honor. So thank you, Chris, for giving me some new perspective. Back to the Iowa episode. Nightshade says, Woodbury County here, would love to find Bigfoot around here. Well, listeners, if you know of anything going around Woodbury County currently or in the past, put it in the comments, please, on YouTube. On the same episode, Hertz says, I'm an Iowa native, originally from Waterloo and recently moved from Forest City to Wisconsin. I remember Humboldt County having a flap in the 70s. Seems wherever there's water and forest cover, they are there. Yes, absolutely. There was a huge Bigfoot sighting flap in Humboldt County in the 70s. You can find it by searching on newspapers.com, newspapers in that area. You can also, I talk about in a few episodes, my Iowa Bigfoot Information Center episode of Bigfoot Society. It's a presentation I did at the Van Meter Visitor Festival a few years ago. Also, you can read in detail about it in David Weatherly's book, Monsters of the Hawkeye State. It's a great book. But that is what we've got for comments from the last week. Some really interesting ones. We are going to move right into some fun call-ins that happened the last call-in show. Now, just so listeners know, if you're new, I have a live call-in show every Saturday night at 8:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, where you can call in and share your Bigfoot encounter live, and then it's potentially used for the podcast the next week. So make sure you are subscribed to the YouTube channel, hit the bell so you don't miss out on that. Let's get into some call-ins. We're going to give it another try, guys. Thanks for your patience. Okay, here we go. Let me know right away if you can hear this first. Hey, this is Jeremiah. How's it going?
Good, man. Sorry about that back and forth. I already filled out that form too, by the way.
Okay. Thanks, man. And what's your name?
Jonathan.
Jonathan. Where are you calling from today, Jonathan?
I was a comment from the Blood of Christ Mountains in New Mexico.
Oh, snap. Yeah. Okay. Well, they hear you. So, Jonathan, feel free to take it away and share what you've experienced, my friend.
Okay. Well, it was Fort Benning, Georgia in 2006. And we were doing a training exercise called a Table 12, where we were mechanized infantry. So basically, we just drive around in Bradleys. I don't know if you know or aware what those are. They're like small tanks with ramps in the back, the old troops. And we were doing a Table 12 at night. And my squad leader, he was the tank commander, and I was the driver. And I hopped out of the Bradley to go use the restroom. And when I came back to him, he said, "Dude, what are you doing? What are you doing over here? I thought you were over there at that corner." I said, "No, I was over here at this wood line." He said, "Well, when we get back to the base, I'm going to tell you what I seen." So when we got back from the Table 12, he told me that he was scanning for me in the wood line because we had to ramp up, which means we had to, get in our vehicles and go. And he said he seen about a 5 foot to 6 foot tall, like cat creature that was standing in the wood line and had green eyes. And he said as soon as he spotted, he was calling for me. And he said as soon as he seen it, he was yelling for it, thinking it was me to come on, like we got to go. And he says it got down on its belly and low crawled backwards back into the wood line. And it said it looked like a cat person or a cat being standing. This is the only thing he described it. And I was like, well, this is crazy. Fort Benning's weird. And he actually had a Bigfoot encounter in I think in Fort Carson. He one of his tank commanders was driving a tank, and there's a loader and a gunner next to him, and the gunner or the tank commander sits in the right, and then the loader or gunner sits in the left, and there's two hatches. Well, he got down and it was tugging on his tank commander, and he's like, "Hey, you need to look what's out there." And he stood up and he's looking around. He's like, "I don't see nothing." He said, "Look to your left." And he looked to his left, and the tank was driving at a slow, steady pace. And he said he turned and looked, and he seen a Bigfoot that was eye level to him inside the tank. And I don't know if you know how tall tanks are, but they're pretty tall, especially when you're standing on the when you see a guy exposed in a tank, he's not sitting in a seat, he's standing on his seat. So if you ever see like old war footage of guys exposed above a tank, in the hatch, it's because they're standing on their seat. And he turned to his right and slowly closed the lid and said, "Don't tell anybody." But obviously somebody found out. So yeah, I remember him telling me about that story in Fort Carson. So those are my two stories.
Where is Fort Carson?
Colorado.
All right, I'm looking that up real quick. That's wild. I mean, my tank knowledge comes from Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, to be honest.
Okay,
so,
that's cool. I actually lived at Blood of Christ Mountains, is where Red Dawn was filmed in 1984.
Oh snap! Yeah, totally. Okay, so that's south of Denver. Oh man, that's a wild story. So, eye level with the guy in the tank. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So if you just look up like height of M1 Abrams tank, and then imagine just a couple feet above that, because he's standing on his driver's hatch or standing on his seat. So, I thought that was probably I'd say in the 90s that happened. Yeah. I've heard some other crazy stories and stuff before when I used to live in Kentucky, but it's hit or miss with some of the stories you hear. There's guys that talk about Sasquatch, but I haven't never seen one myself. But that cat story was crazy because I was in proximity and he thought it was me. And the fact that it got down, like, what do they call it? The ring. Imagine like it crawled like the ring, but backwards back into the wood line. Yeah.
So this is outside of Bigfoot, but it reminds me of an interview I did way back where it was a gentleman who was talking about the proving grounds in the West. Mm-hmm. And there was a cat creature similar to that was seen out there quite a bit, but it was like they think it was like a hybrid type thing. So super weird stuff, man. Not sure what to think about.
Have you seen that YouTube channel of that Bigfoot researcher that passed away from a brain aneurysm recently? And
what's her name? Or we're talking about?
No, it's the man,
Scott Carpenter,
the guy. Yes. Oh man, I was watching some of his stuff, and his son made a short upload about how he thinks that the EMF or something that the big Sasquatch was giving him could have been a contributing factor to his aneurysms. And man, I think his son was right when he said, you got to be careful going out and looking for these things, because you just don't know what level of threat they are to you,
Absolutely.
Physically and energetically. Like you just don't know. And it's just kind of tragic because this guy put a lot of work into his videos, man, and the evidence he caught was insane. Like I haven't seen that much good solid evidence captured. And it's just kind of tragic. That guy literally gave his life to try to let us know what's going on with the Sasquatch and Bigfoot thing. And I think people should still subscribe to his channel and give some support. And if you want intel on it, I think that's a good route. But I always recommend everybody, if you go out in the woods, if you're expecting Bigfoot or not, to carry a firearm with you of some sort, man.
Be prepared definitely for anything.
Yeah.
Yeah,
because there's mountain lion and bear out here. So, but there was a big fire that came through here, but I haven't seen any Bigfoot activity in this area. They say that the chupacabra is real big out here because the Hispanic or Spanish history here. I'll clear out the mic so you can get other callers in.
I appreciate you calling in. I don't hear a lot of military base stories, so I totally appreciate that. Let me know if you hear anything else in the future, and thank you so much for calling in, man.
All right. God bless and be grateful, man.
You too, my friend.
See ya.
Ooh, right off the bat. I love it. Some wild. Guys, tonight's going to be heated up. It's going to be lit, as the kids say. I'm going to call someone back right now. Again, let me know in the comments if you can hear right away, please.
Hi, this is Melanie. I can't get to the phone right now, but leave me your name and number, and I'll call.
Melanie, I tried to call you back. You're welcome to call in again if you would like. All right. Right off the bat, man, Catman stuff, I'm not sure what to think about it. But the Bigfoot, that's eye level with the guy in the tank. That's wild. Ooh, wild stuff. Guys, we've already got 80 something people in here. I appreciate you all being here. Again, if you're new, this is Bigfoot Encounters live from Bigfoot Society. If you've got a Bigfoot encounter you'd like to share, please call on in. It will be live on YouTube. Mothman 46, who let you in the building? Just kidding. It's good to see you. It's good to see you, brother. It'll be live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. You need to fill out the guest release form, please, first, bit.ly/Bigfoot form. And then you can call in 515-809-0165. And we will see what other calls we get tonight. All right. Hey, this is Jeremiah. Oh, snap. Hold on. Hey, Melanie.
I think my things are all up here. Yeah, they're all good.
How's it going? This is Melanie, right?
Yes, sir. How are you, Jeremiah?
I'm doing great. You?
I'm okay.
Awesome.
So I didn't go in the woods yet, but I'm going.
Okay. What are you going to do out there?
Because I'm a night investigator.
Okay.
So I look for things. I go, like during the day, I go out and I look for tree structures. I call it tree talk. Oh my God, you would not believe the things I've found. I'm gonna publish a book with just pictures of the tree talk.
Wow.
But I really wanted to share like two, and they're not long stories.
Okay.
One scared me bad. The other one's just kind of cute and it made me smile. But I just wanted to share, and I signed the form.
All right. Well, feel free to go right ahead, Melanie.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Jeremiah.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so how do I want to say this? So I had a lot of Bigfoot and Dogman experiences and a crawler, but then we moved, okay, and then I just kind of forgot about all of it. But then I was fishing one night and something happened that absolutely blew my mind and made me know that, okay, they're here. And I had the greatest summer. This area was so active that it was like the coolest summer. It was scary. It was fun. It was exciting. It was just great. And then I think they kind of moved on. But so what I want to tell you about though was, okay, so I raise orphaned raccoons, and when you release them, you have to go feed them. So I went to this area where I had released some baby raccoons, and there were always Bigfoot structures here, like crazy ones, way up in the trees and X's and just like structures built. And I never felt any fear. I had seen things. I I don't know if it was a wolf. I was way back in the woods. It was at night, and there was a white wolf. It was huge, and it was just standing there looking at me. And I just told it, you're okay. I'm going this way. So I just walked the other way. But anyway, so one night I was back there, and so I had already fed the coons, and I was just walking through the woods and with my headlamp, and it was probably, oh my God, like 1 a.m, 12:30, something like that. All of a sudden, something behind me, like 15 feet, dropped, and I know this is what happened because nothing else feels like this. It dropped to the ground. It had to have been in the tree. Dropped to the ground behind me, and it hit so hard that it jolted me off, like my feet jolted. Like when it hit the ground, I like jolted on my feet. So instantly, this feeling of dread, of like death, like everything is, that feeling, when you are around a dog man, the feeling is like totally different than it is with the Sasquatch. It makes you feel like you're gonna die, and you just feel like you can't move, you can't breathe, you can't move. And that's how I felt. I was standing there and I couldn't move, I couldn't breathe, and I knew, I didn't turn around, but I knew it was a dog man behind me. So I just, I stood there and I said, when I could talk again and move again, I said, listen, I'm not going to bother you. I'm not even going to look at you. Just let me walk to my car. So when I can walk, I walked very slowly back to where my car was parked. The whole time I could hear this thing behind me walking, very, not loud, just very quietly, very gently, but I could hear, like the twigs were snapping and the leaves were rustling, and I knew it was following me. When I got to my car, I never did, I wish I would have turned around and looked, but I was true to my word and I didn't. I went to my car, I drove away, never looked. But because of the feeling I had, I'm pretty sure it was a dog man. So then these same woods, okay, so the structures, there's all these structures. And all of a sudden one day, in the midst of all these Bigfoot structures, was a tree that was about maybe 15 feet around, 13 feet around, and about from 12 to 15 feet up this tree, something had shredded it so deep that, it went like a third of the way into the tree, and it was just literally shredded. It was clawed. It was crazy, the shredding, and it was big and deep. And I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, I know that's not Bigfoot. Like, that's what Dogman does. So then after that, I started noticing different structures in the woods. There were the Bigfoot structures, but then there were like weird structures. So I started asking all my research friends if dogmen make structures, and they all said no, but these were really crazy structures. And I don't know if you've ever been near a Sasquatch, the feeling is it's fear, it's scary, but it's not like dreadful. It's kind of like you're scared, but not like you feel like you're gonna die. When you're around a dog man, though, that feeling is death. It is dread. It is hopelessness. It's just the worst feeling in the world. So I just wanted to share that with you to let you know, sometimes they are together in the same area, because I know that shredding wasn't a Bigfoot, and I know what dropped behind me wasn't a Bigfoot. I've seen Bigfoot. I've seen him 3 times. I've never had that. I've been scared, but I've never had that dreadful feeling. Someday I'd like to come on your show and just tell everybody some of my experiences I've had. So I just wanted to share that. Oh, and then the quick cute thing. Right. So in this area, when I found out this area was so active, I was having a blast with these guys. So I had a cheesecake that had like 3 pieces of cheesecake left in it, and it was in a container with a snap-on lid. I took it back there to where the Bigfoot activity was. I put it way up on a fallen tree. The next day I came back and it was gone. And my first thought was raccoons. They got it. So I looked like 25 feet all around the area. I could not find that container. So I thought, well, they just took it off somewhere. But the next day I came back to the area that container was on that tree, clean as a whistle, with the lid right beside it. And like, this was an area that people, like, no people go back in here. It's not a trail or anything. So I honestly think the Bigfoot put it back up there, like, okay, fill me back up.
Melanie, you want to hear something wild?
Yes.
When I talked to my buddy Ronnie Roseman, he had the same thing happen to him up in the woods outside of Oak Ridge, Oregon.
No way.
Yeah, same exact deal. It's wild. Yeah, it was like a piece of blueberry cobbler or something. Yeah,
they love
crazy.
sweets.
So,
and they left the thing for him. They left the thing for him to refill.
Yeah, they left it like.
Isn't that so awesome?
Yeah, it was wild. So it really messed with him because he was like, "What is going on?" So.
I know, because raccoons don't do that. One night I was back in there, and I was going to set a camera. I kept setting my game cam up. I was looking for a place to set it, and I started looking for mushrooms, so time got away from me. It got really dark real late. I didn't have the headlamp or anything. I just had my phone and this game cam. I went into this deep part of the woods to set it on the tree, and all of a sudden, from like 20 feet to my right, there was an owl call. And I mean, you know what a real owl sounds like. This was not an owl. This was like crazy sounding. Right after it, to my left down in the swamp, was an answering call, exactly the same. 5 seconds later, the same thing from my right to my, and I'm thinking, I am right in the middle of these guys. Like, wow. I don't have anything. I'm like, there's a phone and a camera. I just went to the first tree, tied that camera in a knot on the tree, and got the hell out of there. I'd have seen Bigfoot by now if I wasn't such a chicken.
Melanie,
I've seen him, but far away.
Right. Can you share if you can't, don't worry about it, but what's the region that you research in?
Oh, well, first it was, I'm going to tell you right where it was. It was Atwater, Ohio. Okay. It's in Portage County, and it is full of old mines. This town has nothing. It has one blinking light. It's nothing but woods and woods as far as you can see. Railroad tracks. And anybody that would like to go there, I will show you where the habitats are. There's a huge X, I mean like 60-foot X that marks this area. And we've got lakes and reservoirs and canals like they all attach. So in the the Bigfoot sightings are really heavy there. But then we had a dog man walk through our yard. This was all in Atwater. I saw a crawler in a tree. I had a dog man go across the road in front of my van. And I saw like some scary things there. But then we moved. Well, now we live right by West Branch Reservoir in Ohio. Northeast Ravenna, Ohio is where it is. And the dam is like through my woods and in my backyard. And I'm telling you, this is the craziest place for encounters. So if anybody ever wants to go with me, I want to go investigate the mines in Atwater, the old mines, and the sand pits. And I just don't want to go alone. I research alone at night, and it gets me like it. I don't want to go into the mines alone. I need someone to go with me. And also out here at West Branch, there's a few places that I'd like to check out that I'm a little scared to go alone. So if anybody would like to get a hold of me, it's can I give my email address?
Melanie, it's up to you. The show has reached, so just be aware of that.
Okay, should I what would be a good way to have people contact me?
So I
really want to go look.
Right, I know. I mean, you can do email if you want. I don't do in between anymore, just because
I understand.
After the whole Mark Paul thing, I had no time.
I understand completely. Okay, so it's melg4th@gmail.com.
Okay.
And I just need someone to go with me because, like I said, I research alone at night. Like I fish at night, I research at night. I'm always alone. And I've had some of the coolest experiences you would not believe. But God, there's so many of them. I'd love to share them all with you sometime.
Reach out to me, Melanie. I think you already have, but send me another email. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And I filled out the form that I need to fill out. So I would love to come on your show and just share some of these things.
I know. We've been talking about it for a while. Yeah.
I know, baby. You're so busy.
All right.
Jeremiah, I really appreciate you letting me share this. Thank you so much.
You got it. I'll talk to you later. Okay, Melanie.
Okay, okay, sweetie. Bye-bye.
Yep, bye. Good times with Melanie. Always a good time. Oh, my goodness. Guys, it's heating up. Mothman46 says, I'll go to the mines alone. Well, there you go, Mothman. MM46. Hey, Mark Paul is in the chat. Hey, pal. Good to see you, friend. Mark Paul is going through some wild stuff. All right, we got another one already. Another person to call back. Remember, let me know as soon as you can if you hear the person on the phone. Thanks, guys. Here we go.
Hello?
Hi, this is Jeremiah.
Hi. Are you on the show? Are you live right now?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, who is this?
Oh, my name is, I go by Jan. I filled out your little Bitly form.
Oh, thank you.
And then I called. Yeah, it's pretty clever. I called and I was trying to leave a message, but I think I made it too long and I got cut off. So listen, I'm a kind of a horse person when I can afford it, which isn't often. I adopted a couple of BLM Mustangs. One was a mare. And my friend in Wrightwood Phelan area wanted to use her for breeding to her black quarter-horse stallion. So the mare was delivered out there, and then I went out there to see her, and I had this 1970 Ford pickup truck, which was sort of a beater, but a lot of fun. Had some real adventures in that truck. And it had when I bought it, it had a built-in camper, and somebody had really built it in there pretty snug. So along with it came a couple of crank-up camper jacks, I could lift it out of the truck, but it felt as if somebody had really built that thing into the truck and it was difficult to get out. So we backed up onto her property where she told us she wanted the camper. I was just going to give it to her. It was in my way. And so we're back in there, and the soil, it looks firm, but it's just sand, and it just started to kind of break down and crumble up. Pretty soon the truck is up to the axles in sand, and the little tripod, crank-up dealies are going out of control. They're going sideways, and the camper's halfway in, halfway out of the truck. It's cattywampus. Looks like it might fall under the cab of the truck, but we were just having so much fun laughing and carrying on. So, but then all of a sudden, it was right about dusk, and all of a sudden this feeling of dread, deep, like you're going to die kind of dread just came over both of us at once. And I'm very kind of outdoorsy. I worked most of my life out in the field, 26 years with the phone company, worked in bad neighborhoods. I don't scare easily, but there was something really, really scary. And we felt like it was being projected onto us from something that was watching us. And I wasn't even really aware of Bigfoot back then, so I didn't have a clue what was going on. But my husband and I both felt it at the same time. And we were fighting the urge just to run, but there was no place to run to. And we had to finish the job and get that camper off of the truck. And we also had to kind of dig out the rear end of the truck. It was buried. So we just had to kind of, just toughen up, and we got the job done, but nothing happened. I didn't see anything. But now, in hindsight, retrospect, I think that was Sasquatch country. And I know it's not far from Edwards Air Force Base, and I've heard stories about how they're there. They're out there in the high desert, So, years passed and my husband died. He died now about, it was in 2018. So time flies by, and I had to sell the house, and I bought some property out in the Ozarks. And as luck would have it, the county that I bought my place in, 60 acres, it's called Booger County. And I think you know what that means. So I haven't been able to make it out there. I'm living in Bakersfield temporarily, but
Okay.
Anyhow, but there was a guy, a friend of mine. He needed a place to go in a crisis. He had basically a dozen dogs that he just didn't want to part with, and he needed a place to stay. I needed someone to kind of watch the place because I was getting a little bit of pilfering, and so anyway, we had a deal. He went out there, and he likes to ride his bicycle. He's a pretty athletic guy. He likes to ride his bicycle up this little county gravel road with the dogs in pursuit. And that's how he exercises them. So one day he's out there, and I guess he stopped at a point in the road, and there were some bushes there, and he heard like a deep growl. And I said, you've had your first Sasquatch encounter. So the dogs were all looking, but he has some pretty good dogs, but they didn't run, but they didn't go in there either. So he was making a lot of fun of a neighbor who just passed, a guy named Stan. Stan was trying to tell him how he'd seen a Bigfoot. And this guy, he just doesn't believe in Bigfoot. But I think he's going to get his mind changed.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I'm absolutely on board with you. You're talking about the Ozarks down in Missouri, right?
Yes, it's you could almost throw a rock at the Arkansas border.
Yep.
Yeah, so they don't call it Booger County for nothing, I'm sure. He was laughing about that. He said, "What are they talking about? Are they talking about the kind you kick out of your nose?" Exactly. I said, "No, they are not. And no, they are not, my friend." They said, "That's an old time term for the boogeyman." And so he likes to get out there and ride his bicycle at night with those dogs chasing him. I think most people, they're in at night and they stay in at night. I think that's the kind of place it is. So he'll get his wake up.
It'll be interesting. I'm sure there'll be something that will happen to, and this gentleman will then know what's going on in the area. But if it does, definitely let us know. And is there a plan for you to move out to that area eventually, Jan?
Yeah, I'm trying to. I basically had to sort of disassemble. I was married to the same man for 47 years, and we lived in the same house for about 45 of those years. So, and I'm sort of a crapaholic, I'll be honest. I'm fascinated by gadgetry and projects, and I've always got some idea that's cooking. I've got one cooking right now. I think it actually could make some money, but anyhow, that's my brain's too busy. So anyhow, but one thing and another with COVID and so many things happening, and I got crooked I used to think that country people were pretty honest, and I'm sure a lot of them are, but I haven't had good luck with them. And so I got ripped off a couple times. And so anyway, but that's the kind of thing that happens to you too when I'd been through years of coping with crises and stress, and I was just kind of done. I finally was ready to quit almost. And then I had to sell the house. I think I sold our house about 6 days before the trustee sale. Just ahead of the chopping block. I sold it to a flipper, and I got enough money to buy this acreage. So I don't know what I'm going to do with it. It's got a year-round creek on the property.
Okay.
It's big enough to appear on the old land maps.
Yeah.
And lots of woods. And so, I'll figure out, I've always wanted to live in the country, but I've been forced to live in the city. But now I don't have to answer to anybody.
There you go.
I don't know. Yeah. So it's going to be fun, I hope. But I don't know if I'll ever see a Sasquatch. I have seen pictures of them that I regard as being very credible. And those are ugly, ugly creatures.
They get pretty wild, yeah. But Jan, I appreciate you calling in to let us know what you got going on. Please keep us in the loop if things progress on that property you have down in Missouri.
Yeah, thank you. And, if it's once I get settled in, if it's, I don't want to deal with a bunch of clowns, but if it's somebody serious who wants to come out and look around and, see if they can find something, hey, I might be open to that, Okay?
Absolutely. Well, thanks for chatting, Jan, and maybe we'll be chatting with you later.
Yeah, hopefully. All right.
Have
Bye-bye.
a good one. Whew. Wild and crazy stuff, you guys. Hope you are buckled up and ready to go because we got someone else to call it back. Man, we're over 100 people. We're up to 108. Guys, we are rocking. We're rolling. If you've got a Bigfoot encounter you want to call in with, make sure that you fill out the guest release form, bit.ly/Bigfoot forum. Then you can call the phone number. If I don't pick up, it's because I'm on the phone with someone else and I will call you back. Okay. So let's rock and roll. Here we go.
Hello.
Hey, this is Jeremiah.
Hey, what's going on?
Hey, what's your name?
Josh.
Josh. All right. Well, thanks for calling, Josh. I'm going to let you go ahead and the floor is yours, my friend. Feel free to share what you've been experiencing.
Okay. My name's Josh. I live in northeastern Pennsylvania. And I had an experience while hunting here, and I thought it would be interesting to share it. I didn't see anything, but you'll see from the story that it's pretty interesting what happened. And if you'd like to, I'll share it.
Absolutely. Are we just going to leave it at northeast Pennsylvania and that's about as detailed or?
Yeah, I mean,
okay.
It's kind of interesting. I'm actually pretty close to where the albino Sasquatch was filmed.
Carbondale, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm not in Carbondale, but I'm kind of close. So
I went to school in that area, so I know it. So yeah, interesting. Well, it's a
beautiful area up here.
So beautiful. Yeah, Scranton area, good stuff.
Yep.
Well, go right ahead, my friend.
Okay, this was mid-October. It was crossbow bow season, archery season, and it was right before dark. I'm disabled, so I hunt on my own property. It's a decent little chunk, but I'm sorry. I apologize in advance. I get nervous talking about this because it did scare the living daylights out of me. But it was probably right before dark, and I thought ended up getting a deer. So if anyone here hunts, you probably know the worst feeling is wounding an animal if you can't get it. So I thought I got it. I went back to the house, got a flashlight. I'm usually armed when I go out there. And the sun started going down, so I went out to start looking. The field on my property, it's about 400 yards to the back of it. And I saw the deer directly straight down the middle. So I followed. I'm checking for blood trail. I really didn't see anything. I get to the end. I go into the woods, and about 10 feet into the woods, I just hear, it was so loud. You could feel it almost in your chest. It's just something it's hard to describe. I really apologize if I'm all over the place, but it was just, it scared the living daylights out of me.
You're okay.
So I turn around. I start walking down down the center of the field. Now I'm disabled. I was in a very bad, car accident. I really can't run anymore. So as I'm going down the field, I hear something, and it's across the fields, maybe let's say 100 yards. I'm in the center. To the left of me, I hear something, and it's pacing me. It's staying right to the left of me. And in my head, I'm just thinking, okay, it can't be a bear. I've never seen a bear do something like that. I've never heard a bear, pace you and basically keep, stay just right to my left. And as I'm going, you can hear it. And it wasn't a four-legged animal. That was pretty clear. I could hear two footsteps, and on the side there, it's tall brush with a few trees. So I'm shining the light over, and I could see the trees moving. There was something there behind them. And this whole time, I'm just trying to get up back to the house. And I really thought it was going to, come out and try to stop me. I thought it was going to flank me. And I finally make it up back to the house. And at that point, I stopped hearing things. I stopped hearing it. So I wasn't sure what it was doing, but it was one of those experiences that just, to this day, I can't really go out prior to daylight. It was one of those that I apologize again. It
sounds like
was one of those
really
things
affected
that,
you. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've had other experiences here around, I forget what night it was. It was about 2 a.m. and I just hear something banging on my neighbor's barn where they keep some of their animals. And I go to them the next day. I'm like, well, did you guys hear that? No, we didn't hear anything. I'm like, how did you not hear that? There was something literally just banging, trying to get in. And it's just, I don't know. I always hear people talk about how they want to see something like this or they want to see one. I didn't see a thing, and it still scares the daylights out of me.
Have you ever reached out to any researchers in the area?
No.
Okay.
It's something that I don't really, there's still kind of not a stigma, but
sure.
You know what I mean? It's just not something. I've talked to a few people about it, and they kind of looked like, it was probably something we know, a bear or this or that. But this was just, it was too strange. It was just something that, it's just hard to, it's even hard to talk about. It scared the living daylights out of me.
Absolutely. I definitely tell it shook you up, and I would be, it sounds like you're aware of your surroundings when you're going out, which is good. If you're ever wanting to talk to a researcher, there's a guy that, he's all over the top of the state, but I think he's out in the Poconos sometimes as well. His name is Matt Arner. Okay. He's a really good guy. You can find him on Facebook. It's Arner. It's his last name, but I've interviewed him before on this podcast. But he's a really good guy.
Okay.
He's over by Allegheny, that area too. He does stuff over there. So.
Okay, because I grew up upstate New York.
Okay.
So I don't really. There's been things up there that I've heard about, but nothing like this. This was just. It's just hard to talk about because it's just, you almost have this feeling like there's nothing you can do. If it wants you, there's really nothing you can do about it. And I've had other experiences where sitting, I can't go in tree stands anymore, but sitting at the benches at the bottom of trees, a half hour, maybe 45 minutes before daylight, and you're sitting, I'm sitting there, everything's fine. And then all of a sudden it's like, it's just this fear comes over you. And it's like, there has to be something, it's not a bear looking at me or not. It's just, you get this deep, it's almost like a primal fear. Like, I think that our ancestors had to have experiences with these. I really don't think it's something that, it's almost like we understand that these things probably preyed upon us at one point, throughout, the history of, humanity or whatever.
When you were sitting at the bottom of the tree and you started feeling that way, what sounds were you hearing in the woods around you?
Well, that's just it. Not much of anything.
Yeah.
You can hear the wind going through. But overall, it's just, I don't know what it was. I had one experience where I was going to that bench, and something just ran as fast as it could away. And that sounded like it was on 2 legs. I'm not going to say I'm the greatest, the most experienced hunter out there, but I can understand if something's on 4 legs, if it's on 2 legs, you can hear the difference.
Sure.
There's not really they don't sound the same at all. You can tell if something's on 2 legs. And I don't know. I've just had some weird experiences. I know I don't want to get to where I'm at, but right on Route 6 over here, there was a dog man sighting a few years ago.
Really?
I think one of the hyena-faced ones.
Oh, snap.
Yeah, and then
those.
I think right south of me, they had I think since the 50s, the Susquehanna Screamer.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean...
You should listen to my interview with Matt Arner, because he actually talks about that. That in Medics Run Mike, which is another regional Bigfoot out there. But yeah, you would probably find that episode interesting if you haven't checked it out yet.
No, I'll definitely check it out. I appreciate you taking the time to listen. I mean, I know it's not really, a crazy encounter where I've seen something, but it was one of those things where I really can't explain what it could have been. And considering some of the other sightings around here, I really don't know what to make of it, Well,
I appreciate you calling in and sharing. If this is how maybe you're able to get the info for a researcher in your area, then it's definitely worth it. And I appreciate you sharing what you experienced so far.
No, I mean, right now I never want to talk about this again, to be completely honest.
Sure. Gotcha.
This was one of those things that the week after that, I didn't sleep at all. Mm. It was I was up sitting on the couch, to be honest, with a rifle across my lap, just scared to death that, is something going to come up near the house? I've had a few times where my dog, I'll wake up like 2 a.m. and she's just staring at the wall growling. And I'm like, oh, it's either a bear or there's something outside, tipping her off. But yeah, it just,
wow.
That was one of those things. But
very interesting. Well, thank you so much for calling in, friend.
No, don't worry about it. Thank you for having me on, and thank the viewers for putting up with me for a few minutes while I just say what happened. But
you have a great night.
Okay, you too.
Holy mackerel, we're getting a lot of calls, and this is awesome. Okay, here we go.
To accept, press 1. To send.
Hi, this is Jeremiah.
Hey, Jeremiah. What's going on, buddy?
Hey, friend. Who is this?
This is Kyro.
Oh, hey, Kyro. How's it going, man?
Pretty good, man. I didn't know if you was on the line with someone else or not, or if I'd have to leave you a voicemail or whatever. But I really appreciate you calling me back, man. I got a couple really nice stories. They're pretty much short and sweet. I won't take up too much time. But yeah, dude. So I live in southeastern Kentucky in a really small town. And so I'll cut straight to the chase, man. Basically, this was like last year. And I came home from work, and I was chilling on the back porch. Normal day, just sitting there doing my thing, relaxing, getting ready to do some chores around the house. And my cousin lives right next door to us. And they have a huge orchard. Like their whole entire backyard is gardens and an orchard field. And I look up there periodically because I like to see, like all the deers that come in and all the other wildlife that comes in. My children enjoy seeing it. And I just happened to look up there, and out of nowhere, at the edge of the field, stood what I thought was a bear, jet black. And I thought, oh, wow. But then I noticed it was bipedal. And my first reaction was to grab my phone. I reached for my phone, realized it was on charge in the house. It had died on me at work. And I thought, oh my gosh, you've got to be kidding me. And so my next reaction was to grab my .22 pellet rifle, but not to shoot or to even scared away for that matter. That was the last thing I wanted to do. What I wanted to do was look through that scope. And I did just that. It was already making eye contact with me before I even seen this thing, mind you. And as soon as I grabbed that gun and threw it to my shoulder, it turned to its right and began pacing off. And when I mean pacing off, it took probably 4 good steps and was already back behind the tree line. And all I could get was, I seen a big black blob standing on 2 legs leaving here. And in about 4 seconds, my neighbor's dogs out the road were going absolutely berserk. I mean, they were telling it. They was laying it off. And from here, you could see the skyline and like little patches of light through the thick trees. And all I could see through that scope was those patches of light depleting into darkness. And it left. And I had never been like a hardcore Bigfoot enthusiast or researcher or anything until last year. I'd always, been interested in it, but I had never wanted to get so involved with something like that as much as I am now. These things are real, man. They're here, they're real. And I would like to share these stories so that other people, would come out with it, because a lot of people keep it under their hat because they're afraid that they're going to get ridiculed, because they're afraid people's going to make fun of them,
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the area you're in, that Eastern Kentucky area, has some wild things come out of it. But so you said that you were looking through your scope at what you were seeing at the creature. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Did you see any?
And I did get a good view.
You did?
Yes.
Do you remember any details of what you saw?
I would say that it was probably about 7 foot tall. I'm not going to exaggerate and say, it was 10 or 11 foot tall. It wasn't. Mm-hmm. I'm about 6 foot tall, and I know what a normal person looks like from here when they're up in that orchard, because my father goes up there with my kids, and I do too, to gather apples and everything. And we're also going up there all the time doing work for my cousin next door. And often, if I don't go, I'll be here on the back porch watching, just to make sure that my kids are minding and whatnot. And it's a size comparison type thing. I know what a normal person looks like at the edge of those woods from here.
Right.
This was no man. I promise you that. This was no man. This was no bear. It was jet black, about 7 foot tall. The arms is probably the main thing that I noticed, other than it's just complete bulk size of it. I mean, it was phenomenal. The arms hung down. Like, if I were to stand up straight and put my arms straight down, uh-huh, my hands are going to stop a little bit below my waist. Okay. This thing had arms that hung down almost to its knees. And that's saying a lot, because this thing was 7 foot tall.
Yeah.
Or better. And so I did not go up there. It kind of freaked me out. I wish now that I would have, to go and look for tracks, but it was really dry during that time last year. So I figured I would just be wasting my time. But I wish now that I would have, just in case.
Right.
But I didn't. And so also, that's one story I got. my second story, we were finding some morel mushrooms early on in the spring. That's kind of a big thing here. And it was a pretty abundant year. We found close to 300 this year. And I know that to some of you, that's just a drop in the bucket. But for us here, that was a big deal. And we enjoyed them. My kids love to eat them. I love to eat them. And so we were doing that. And we were going up toward a place that we know that's called Wells Camp. Locals here know exactly what I'm talking about, but I'm not quite sure if I want to disclose that location or not. But if there's any locals watching this, they will know exactly who I am and what I'm talking about. But so we was up on the backside of Wells Camp, and it is treacherous. These mountainsides are literally steeper than a cow's face, Jeremiah. It is wild.
Wow.
Yes. And we were in the middle of nowhere at the dead end there. And we get out of the truck, and we barely had enough room at the end of that dead end to even turn around. So we get out of the truck, we get headed up through there, and my dad says, he was like, well, look here. He was like, it looks like some big-footed person's already been in here. And I was like, what? What do you mean? Who's going to be here? There's been nobody here but us in the past 10 years. What are you talking about? And he was like, come look. And I wear a size 12 Rocky Bear Claw. And keep that in mind. And I looked down what he was pointing at, and there was a 14-inch humanoid footprint with clearly 5 toes. And it had a heel on it bigger than my fist, way bigger than my fist. The pad of the foot directly below the toes was abnormally wider than they should have been for a normal person. And just the whole entire size and structure of that footprint was abnormal for any human being. And it must have weighed a lot, because in those emails, when I sent you those pictures,
yep,
you can see those are deep. Those are really deep footprints.
Yeah.
And if you would like, you can pull that up right now for the live feed so they can see them. And that would be great.
As of right, my email is a mess, and that will happen, but I don't know if right now is the right time to try to do that on live. But thank you.
I understand that. Yeah. Oh, you're very welcome. You've got my permission to do what you want with those.
Yep.
That's not a problem. I would love to share that with everybody and let them see that. And that would mean the world to me. And like I said, that would also give comfort to anybody else that may have pictures of their own or may have stories of their own, and give them the comfort that they need to come forward and not be bashful and ashamed of what they have to provide for this community, for this type of stuff, because it's awesome. It's real. There's no reason to be ashamed of it. You know, excuse me. But yeah, and we went on up through there, and you know, after that, I took those pictures and everything. There was also a small one too. I sent you those too. But we went on up through there, and we did find some hickory chickens. That's what we call them here. Most people just call them mushrooms or morels. Here we call them hickory chickens. But yeah, we went on up through there, and we found a bunch. And the other evidence I was telling you about also in those emails, and I don't know if this is in correspondence with these tracks or what, but I seen some small saplings that were clearly alive still. And they were all bent and broken and pointed in the same direction.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I don't know if anybody listening, or possibly you or anyone, knows what that could mean, if that's in correspondence with Bigfoot actions. I don't know. But I did find those tracks right at the bottom of the hill where I found those bent over saplings, and they were all pointed in the same direction. And I just thought that was really interesting.
I've heard that come up in other reports where they just see a massive amount of trees kind of bent over. It's very, very interesting stuff. I mean, I have as many questions about the whole trees and tree structures and all that as I do about Bigfoot itself. But it's weird stuff, definitely. But
for sure.
When you were looking at the Bigfoot and from the first story, do you remember any specific details of the face at all when you were looking through the scope?
The face did not have hair on it, and it looked rather pale, almost like a grayish color.
Okay.
The fur was jet black, and that's initially why I thought it was a big black bear. And like, it freaked me out for sure, because like, as soon as I looked up there, this thing already knew that I was there. I don't know if it just heard my screen door slam when I came outside and sat down or what, but it was already there making eye contact with me. Like, what are you? Mm-hmm. You know, it was one of them kind of deals.
Did you get, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, you're good.
Did you see it move around at all? Walk around the area?
Yes, I did. Yes, I sure did.
Do you remember anything? You know, like how a person has a gait. Do you remember anything? Was there anything out of the ordinary about the way it was walking?
It was a longer stride. I noticed that, but it kind of didn't have a choice because it was so big. The arms swang forward and backward a lot farther than ours would have, because it had such long arms. Mm. So there's that, and the stride too. And it looked like almost as if, like, you know, a lot of people walk straight legged, but it's like when this thing took off, it's like it had a slight bend of the knee. It's like it would crouch as it took each step. Okay.
Interesting.
Very interesting. And yeah. I wish I could have got videos of that, or at least a photo. But of course, my phone was in here dead in a doorknob on charge.
Exactly. Yeah. I've been there as well with electronics and not having charges. I know exactly what you're talking about. It's the curse of the Bigfoot.
That was a bummer. Yeah, that was definitely a bummer. But I did get a clear view through that scope. And like I said, that's the only reason I even picked up that little 22 pellet rifle, was just so I could look at it. And I did get a very clear view. I mean, I know what I saw.
That's awesome. Squatch and Holler, which, guys, if you're not subscribed to him, Roger, you need to be. Do you remember if it was thick in the waist or if it was thin?
It was thick. It was thick all over.
Interesting.
Everything about this thing was absolutely massive. From the chest plumb down to the feet. I even seen the feet.
Really?
There were no shoes. Yes, there were no shoes. This was no person. This was no man. This was no bear. It was a Bigfoot. I mean, there's no other logical explanation for it.
Frank is asking, so if you had to categorize it just with a snap judgment, would you say the face looked more ape or more human, or maybe neither?
I would say more apish. Now keep in mind, my eyes are not the best. Okay. I've had a lot of things done to my eyes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, when I was younger, I actually had one of my eyeballs crushed inside of my skull with an ice ball at school one time.
Oh my goodness.
And yeah, and this is rather off topic, but as it expanded inside of my skull, the iris in my eye actually began filling up with blood. It made it up to halfway. And the doctor said that if it were to completely fill up, that I would have been permanently blind in that eye. Yeah. So my vision is not the best, but I do know what I saw. I can still see, you know, I'm not blind by any means. Sure. I can still hunt. I can still drive. I'm not legally blind, you know, but I couldn't tell you like every single fine grained detail, but I do know that the face looked like an ape.
Okay.
From here. And it was probably, I don't know, 40, 45 yards, 50 yards maybe, tops away.
Gotcha.
And the face looked like an ape. It was palish, grayish colored. No hair on the face. Maybe it had some underneath hair, like somewhat of a beard maybe, like hair. I couldn't see anything around its mouth or on its face. The top of its head had shorter hair than the rest of it. But all through its shoulders and its chest, its forearms and everything, its waist, its belly, its legs, its feet, it was all huge. It was all huge. Completely jet black, just like a shiny black bear.
That's really interesting.
And the rest of the hair, you know, it seemed like it had shaggier hair in its arms and lower body than it did on its chest and its head. Its arms had really long, coarse, thick, shaggy, black, shiny hair, and so did its lower body.
Okay.
And I will say this: it did look female because it looked like its chest was a bit more than just muscle, if you will.
Yeah.
It looked like it had some breasts there. Right. Jeremiah. So I think it was a female.
Yeah. Interesting. Wow. Kyro, I'm glad you called in tonight for sure. You're on the pile of emails for me to respond to that grows every day. It's wild.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It's wild. There is no question in my mind this thing is real just by the massive amount of people that are reaching out every single day. It's crazy. And I've experienced stuff myself in the woods. It's crazy, man. I love it.
Love to hear about that. Yeah, I know it is. You're a very busy person. You're covering a busy topic.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate the heck out of what you do. It means the world to me and so many more people, as you can see. And I love it, man. Thank you so much for what you do.
Well, thank you.
And not a problem. I hope you put this on. I'd love to show my friends and everything and let everybody else hear what the viewers also that called in tonight had to say. We're all very interested, man. And I love your show. I'm a pretty big fan, and I appreciate the heck out of what you do, man. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Kyro, for calling in. I'll be in touch.
Not a problem, man. Thank you, Jeremiah.
You got it.
All right, man. See you, bro.
Bye.
You too.
Oh, man, that was wild. Thank you, Kyro, for calling in. That was good stuff. Man, tonight is just popping. 136 people live. I appreciate every one of you being here. We are coming up to the 10 p.m. Central Standard Time hour. Let me try to get caught up here. Let's see. Good stuff. And we got a lot of people in here. I want to say, let me find one. Where's this comment? Hey, Turtle Island, how's it going? Good to see you in here. Let's see. While we're waiting to see if there's any more calls, let me know what if you go out in the woods and you go looking for Bigfoot, what audio recorder do you use in your research? Myself, I use a Tascam DR05X. It's a really good. Richard, what does this mean? Richard, have you researched the siege at Honubby? It gets tough living with them. Okay, so Richard, are you from Honubby? Here's the thing. I've tried to research the siege at Honubby. No one likes talking. People don't like talking about that. I mean, I've got hopefully some people that are coming on, but the people that are from the area that are not into Bigfoot, they really are just extremely bothered by it, I think. They probably have to deal with people coming into their small town every single day trying to look for Bigfoot for the last 20 years. So, Richard, if you're from Honubby, let me know. I would be interested to talk to you. Let's see. Tam, any reports in Central Ohio? Oh my goodness, dude. There are reports all over Ohio. You should, yeah. And also Dogman stuff too. As Jeffrey just said, London, Ohio has werewolf. If you go to BFRO, the BFRO website, I think it's bfro.net. Yeah. And if you don't like the BFRO, you can also go to bigfootmap.com, which I like the Bigfoot mapping project because Scott, who runs it, is awesome. If you have a Bigfoot encounter and you don't want to call in and share live, you can also email me at bigfootsociety@gmail.com. There's no problem if you want to share that way instead of calling in live. That's no problem. Let's see. So yeah, we're having a good time here. If you would like to, I love when I go to events and someone comes up and is like, I listen to the podcast, and I'm like, oh my goodness, people actually listen to this thing. So if you want to meet me in person, you can. There's a few places I'm going to be this year. So I'll be at Monster Fest in Canton, Ohio, coming up end of June, I believe. So it's coming up quick. And I'll be doing a live episode of the podcast. My guest will be Justin from Cryptids of the Corn. We're going to have a good time. Also, I will be out in Oak Ridge, Oregon. That's around the weekend of like July 19th and 20th. I'll be out there, and I'm not presenting anything. I'm not vending, but they said, hey, if you want to come out here, we got a couch for you. So I was like, well, that's good enough for me. I just got to get out there. So I'll be hanging out in Oak Ridge, Oregon at the festival, trying to get interviews from people around the town and at the festival. And I'll tell you what, guys, I've been talking to people on Facebook about Bigfoot from Oak Ridge. I have 30 contacts already just from Facebook. Everyone who lives in that town has had some kind of Bigfoot interaction. So very, very excited about that. Also, I'm going to be at the Van Meter Visitor Festival in Van Meter, Iowa. This is last weekend of September. So you can see me there. I'll be vending at a table. So I have lots of people come up, share their encounters around Iowa. We had a individual who shared their track cast they made in Iowa. That's in Van Meter, Iowa. It's just outside of West Des Moines, which is in central Iowa. For all those who aren't really familiar with Iowa, you're missing out. Guys, we're having a good time. The chat is wild. The chat, this is exactly what I want. I want the chat to just be popping off and people becoming friends and sharing stuff. That's what I want to see happening, and it is happening. So I appreciate y'all being here. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Make sure that you hit the bell icon. Make sure you look up Bigfoot Society on your favorite podcast platform. Subscribe to us there. Share a favorite show with a friend, guys. The goal is to become full-time podcast by the end of the year. And then if that happens, I'll be able to start going more places, maybe interviewing people in person. And that would be a really big deal. So if you would ever consider supporting the podcast, now is the time to do it. If you can swing it, you can become a Patreon member. That's right, Frank, or a YouTube channel member. And if you can't swing either of those, I just appreciate you sharing the podcast, some episodes with all your friends. Share it with your Bigfoot groups on your social media, all that good stuff. Diana's making s'mores and having them for us. So thank you, Diana, for that. Really makes me want to have s'mores. Yeah, sure, Diana. I'll share what I've, in the last few minutes, I'll share what I've experienced so far. Okay. So my buddy Tate Hieronymus, and if you want to see these in documentary form, you can go to Tate's YouTube channel, Sasquatch, A Search for Sabe. 2 years ago, Tate got me to go out to his area, which is undisclosed location in Iowa, very wooded location, surprisingly. We got out there, it was super hot. We're hanging out by the fire. All of a sudden, and our audio recorders weren't going, a huge tree gets pushed over in front of us about 30 feet in the woods. We're freaked out. We're like, what is going on? I was like, was that a firework? And he's like, dude, there's no fireworks. We're so far out in the woods. I was like, yeah, fair enough. He starts to do some tree knocks. We get tree knocks back. Okay, so it's pretty wild, right? We get, I believe those are on recorded on audio. The last night, so I'm in a tent. Tate is car camping. I record some audio at about 3:30 a.m. on my audio recorder. I record 3 wood knocks, so a set of 3 wood knocks, and the sound of a tent zipper being unzipped. Yeah, Mark, exactly. I heard a tree get pushed over. The zipper being unzipped freaked me out because I was like, well, was that my own tent being unzipped? I don't remember my tent being unzipped, right? I did not leave my tent until it was way past that. We did realize later on that the audio recorder was about 30 feet away from camp and that it sounded like it was very close. So we're also thinking maybe it was a mimic sound, right? So that was some weird stuff that happened the first time. Last year, I went with Tate, Ronman Reed, Ontario Richardson, so a few other researchers as well. We did some it was more intense research. We went for hikes around the area. Heard some weird stuff. One night we were out. We did hear what we thought was mumbling out in the woods, close to what's been reported in a few documentaries recently. It was really weird. But the weirdest thing that happened to me was the last night. So I was in my tent again. Ron was in his tent. We went to bed late because we had been out hiking, night hiking. So we went to bed super late. I get woken up out of a deep sleep at about 3:30 a.m. to the sound of 2 whoops out in the woods. And I was like half excited, half freaked out, right? I was like, holy mackerel. Why is Ontario doing whoops out in the woods? because I was coming out of a deep sleep, because she was doing whoops earlier that night. We were playing the Sierra sounds too. That may have been a mistake, but we were playing them as loud as we could, right? And I think it brought something in. So now you're going to ask, did you get these recorded? No, because I did not change the batteries on my recorder before I went to bed. So my recorder died before all the stuff kicked off. That was a tough lesson to learn. That won't happen again. So I heard 2 whoops in the woods around the same time. My buddy Ron over in his tent found or heard a long call or a long howl, like a woo, right? Ontario from her car thinks she heard something like maybe a car door slam, which that's another mimicked sound that's pretty popular for researchers to hear. So yeah, I have, so far, and I want to go to that place again. So hopefully that happens again. But I've had some interesting things happen so far in this one area in Iowa. I have not had any visuals, and I hope to have some interesting things happen when I go out to Oregon this July. So stay tuned. Stay tuned for that. Be good stuff. Well, we're getting up to the end. I appreciate you all hanging out. I'm going to go ahead and shut her down. But thanks to everyone for hanging out for almost 2 hours. Thanks to everyone who called in. And make sure that you share the channel with a friend. Make sure you're subscribed, hit the bell, and we will see you next time. And also, Squatch and Holler. Check out Squatch and Holler's channel. Make sure you're subscribed to him too. I appreciate you all hanging out. Please take a minute to help out the show by subscribing on YouTube, making sure you hit the bell so you don't miss any notifications, and share the episode on YouTube with a friend. Also, if you're listening to us on a podcast, thank you so much. Make sure that you're subscribed, share the show with a friend. Really, it's all about sharing the show wherever you can. If you've had a Bigfoot encounter related to the following or know someone who has, please reach out to me at bigfootsociety@gmail.com or pass on my email. Here's the list. All right, I'm going to use this space this week to announce that I'll be at the Sasquatch Summerfest in Oak Ridge, Oregon as an attender. I won't be presenting or anything, but I'll be hanging out, trying to interview people that have had Bigfoot encounters. If you're from the Oak Ridge, Oregon area or surrounding and you've had a Bigfoot experience, please contact me directly, bigfootsociety@gmail.com. Also, Priscilla was nice enough that if you get your tickets through SasquatchSummerfest.com and use code Bigfoot Society, you can get 50% off the cost of your tickets, which is a big amount. So code Bigfoot Society to get 50% off your tickets, SasquatchSummerfest.com, and helps out the podcast as well. A special thank you to all the Bigfoot Society Patreon and YouTube channel members. It's your support that helps keep the show going, and I extremely appreciate it. Here at Bigfoot Society, we're headed to the moon, and here's a current update about going full-time. So here we go. As of 5/22, we are now at 202 patrons out of 824 needed. That's 24.51%, almost a quarter of the way there, guys. Brings us down to 622 left to join the Patreon. So a huge thank you to Barbara, Gregory, Dana, Craig, Jeff, Steve, Ricky D, Norm, Megan, Dan, Daddy Chatty, Joe, Eber, Ike, Jules, Josh, Ryan, Todd, Nathan, Gabe, Bill, Lucky, Megan, William, Bobby Joe, and Inger for joining recently. If you want to join in the fun, you can join over at patreon.com/The Bigfoot Society. I'll see you there. And again, thanks for listening.
her and I can get on here and we can tell our stories. Maybe there's somebody else out there listening that's too afraid to tell their story. Maybe this will give them the courage to come out and not feel so bad about it. Who cares what anybody thinks? I know what I saw. I know what's out there. That's all I care about.
Please let people know. Please let them know. If you ever see one of these things, you need to tell. Because if you don't, then shame on you. You know? Shame on you.